Welcome back to the Dating with Katy show, where in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about long distance dating. And I can tell you that I'm actually really excited. I feel like pulling up a coffee cup and just sharing with you from my heart because I have been dating long distance for quite a while, and I believe that it can work. And I'm going to share the pros and the cons and some really great tips to make it successful, because right now you can't always find the fish in the pond that you're swimming in. So you might need to go to a different pond. So make sure that you subscribe. Make sure you check out the links below. Get in my network. I'm part of Cinqe Matchmaking, where we do vetted professional dating. If you'd like to become a client, that's also in the link below. It is going to be something that will take the stress out of dating for you. You'll get my coaching. You can also do coaching on the side. Guys, game changer right here when you're working with me one-on-one. Well, let's get started. Like I said, I have always enjoyed dating long distance. Now, let me give you some background about who I am, where I live, where I've lived, and why this worked for me. So, born and raised in Long Beach, California, went to school in Irvine, not very far, kind of the same general vicinity, but I love the idea of moving out at 18. I liked being independent, and then I lived in Costa Rica for a year when I was a college exchange student. So went 2 semesters to the University of Costa Rica, had myself a little tico boyfriend. That didn't go well. Obviously, he was not the man of my future, but I enjoyed just the space and the time to be able to kind of do those things. So I have an adventurous spirit, and I've always kind of had one. So for me, travel is enjoyable. Now, moving forward, I ended up marrying a guy from Minnesota. And I had met him while he was here in California. He was with Campus Crusade for Christ at a big group event in Newport Beach. And one guy liked me, but I liked this guy. And believe it or not, there was this girl, and she was trying to matchmake, and she was adorable. And everybody needs a wing girl, right? Everybody needs a good matchmaker in the middle. So she kind of helped me out and helped set me up with my future husband at the time. So he and I got married. We ultimately, 2 years after our marriage, we had 2 kids. We moved to China, where I raised our 3 kids. Now, I lived in China for 7 years. And if you haven't listened to it, my podcast 10 has some really great stories about who I am and my lifestyle and all the crazy things I've done. And living abroad is such a unique experience that for me, I would do it again in 2 minutes. As a matter of fact, now that my kids are out of the house, I often think about doing it, teaching English anywhere, just for the experience. And living there and raising your kids, again, it was a challenge, but I loved it. I picked up Chinese. I'd already learned Spanish. So for me, the love of language and travel and getting on airplanes was an easy no-brainer. Now, I know for some of you, you travel for work and it's exhausting. That I know is not glamorous. And I even applied to be a flight attendant right out of college. And the one thing I remember, because I did get the job, but I didn't take it, one of the flight attendants said, "This is not a glamorous job." So travel can be exhausting and can be difficult. Let me just acknowledge that. So I'm not making it all, ponies and whistles, whatever they say. So moving forward in that, when I got divorced, I was smart enough to know that you don't poop where you eat, if you know what I mean. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't dating the dads from school. I wasn't dating guys from my gym. I wasn't currently working in a workplace, so it wasn't like I could date those guys. But I knew better than to do that. People can and people have, and it can work, but it just wasn't right for me. So I was already looking outside of my city. Now, for me, that means north towards LA or south towards Orange County. And I would date those guys, and I enjoyed it. Now, I had a great schedule with my ex-husband. So if you don't understand divorced people, because a lot of my listeners are either looking to get married or post-divorced, and when you have children and you're sharing them and you're splitting the time, we did a 50-50 custody. It was on a 2-2-5. This is always something I ask a lot when I'm pairing and matching people, like, what is your child custody and how flexible are you with it? On my 2-2-5 with my ex-husband, it was every Monday, Tuesday. I never had my kids, so I always worked. And I always took jobs that allowed me to have a flexible schedule because I wanted to date. And I wanted to be available to hang out with the guy that I'm currently involved with. So I worked in retail, always knew that I could switch shifts and things like that. But I always worked Monday, Tuesdays. Wednesday, Thursdays, I was a full-on mom. And then every other weekend, I'd have my kids. So there were days and weekends when I would have 5 days straight with no kids. So it was great for dating because that means I could get away with somebody. Now, some of you are on a week on and a week off. The only thing hard with that is that for a whole week, not seeing somebody you're dating can be a little rough if you can't leave the kids. And I'll do a podcast in the future that talks about dating with children, dating with little kids, dating with teenagers. But for now, scheduling is really important, how you decide. And I knew I couldn't live a week without seeing my kids or just, living a week without seeing the person I'm dating. So I didn't like the week on, week off. So for me, the whole long distance dating was good because I had every other weekend and I always had Monday, Tuesday. So if I needed to drive somewhere, if I needed to fly somewhere, there was opportunity to do so. You've got to make sure that this works. And then I would meet guys who lived in, Santa Barbara area, all the way down to San Diego area. And then I started dating guys that lived in Denver. And I'd meet them on apps when they were in town or whatnot. And I'd quickly move them off the app and get them on a date. And, I loved my Denver guy. He was great. He was a Texan originally, which I'm telling you, I think Texans are the best. So get in the database and let's find us some Texans. And it just really has worked well for me. But there are definitely things you have to do to make sure that it's going to work. First off, you have to be the kind of person who's open and willing to be flexible. You've got to compromise. You're going to have to miss out on some things. You're going to have to spend some money. And that's going to have to be something on you and them. And then you have to have the time. So let me share one last story. I now have a client. She is from Vegas and he lives right in my neighborhood. I just set them up. They're great. They're dating long distance. I kind of made this podcast because I want them to listen to it. So hopefully they're listening. But it's so important that you put these ideas into place so that it can actually go well and go right. So here they are. Number one, does this reality even work? I get it. The chemistry might be great. It could be fun for a season. And if that's all you want, great. But if you have a long-term goal, a lot of my clients and followers either want to get married, they want to find a quality relationship, so they're listening to Katy to make sure they're learning, or you're post-divorce, maybe you have kids and you have that schedule that I spoke of. You've got to make sure that that reality even works. Let's talk about it. Travel. Do you have time to travel? Do you have the money to travel? Do they have the money to support you to travel? Does your work offer the opportunity to be able to travel? A lot of people work from home now, work from their computers. That's fantastic. When I call and I chat with a woman and she's like, yep, I work from home, I work from my computer, I'm like, you are a godsend. Men love that opportunity. Are you a teacher? Do you have all summer to travel? Can you go teach somewhere else? Are you flexible to do that? So does your reality work? Now, for example, I could date a guy in Santa Barbara. That's a 2, 3, 4 hour drive, depending on traffic. Or I could just get on an airplane and fly 2 hours. And what I like about that is if I'm just flying somewhere, it always has to be a good set plan versus I miss you. Can you come out this weekend and drive over? I didn't like the pressure of that. So for me, I'd rather have a planned flight than have to feel the pressure of a can you come right now and drive? So make sure your reality is going to work. Number 2, schedule, schedule, schedule. And I'm serious about this because if you let time and space go, it's just going to fade. It's really hard to keep a great relationship going when there's no idea what's next on the docket. If you are with someone and you are dating them long distance, do this for me. Every time you see each other, right before you leave, make sure you already have something else on the books. This was something I learned that if he left and he and I had nothing coming up, even if he just got on the plane and was leaving, somehow my heart would sink because I was like, well, I guess we'll have to figure out when we see each other next. Instead of that morning or that day, we go get coffee and we say, okay, look, when is the next best time? My heart needs to feel safe. And I need to know that you are truly interested in me and you are making time and making availability for me. So communicate that. If you don't have a set time or schedule, you don't know your schedule yet, just reinforce that I am making a way. I definitely want to see you. I'm going to make it a point. So schedule, 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 and also know the amount of time that you can be apart from someone. I've learned that in my long distance relationships, 10 days is about it. Now, of course, there's no physicalness, there's no touching, there's just phone calls, but I need to see and touch someone. One of my love languages is touch, and that is huge to me. I need to snuggle, I need a hug. I mean, even my kids know, I'm like, I don't see them as much anymore either. I'm like, I need 20 times more hugs in these next 2 days because I don't get them as much anymore. So schedule, book it out, make plans, put it on the calendar, and then make sure you know how much time you can really handle. And for some people, it might be less. Some people could be more. Where are you traveling in 2023? You're traveling with me. You're traveling on the Dating with Katy single trips. Our first one will be in January to bring in the 2023 in warm weather, poolside, tequila shots, all included at the beautiful Breathless Resort. Bring your bestie, sign up, make it your Christmas gift to yourself, because in that middle of winter, you're going to be happy that you joined us. Space is limited. Then, if you want a more difficult trip, well, I say that as a pun, you're going to want to join us for 10 days in Tuscany, where we will be difficultly drinking wine, looking for truffles, sitting by the beaches, going through the small communities of Lucca and the churches and the bars, and everything is included in that trip as well. You will want to join me. Space is limited. Make sure you click, sign up, put your down payments, and I will see you in Cancun and in Italy. Number 3, figure out your best form of communication. This is huge. I talked about it in my last podcast on communication and compromise. Are you a phone talker? I only talk on the phone in my car. I hate talking on the phone because I'm multitasking and then I'm not paying attention. But when I'm driving, I can actually pay attention and have a convo with you. And honestly, if you're going to call me twice a day just to check in, I don't need long discussions. I might only need one check-in a day. I might not need it every day. So do you want the phone call? Do you want a good morning text every day? I know every lady loves that. Every woman loves a good morning text. So guys, if you could do that, be the man with the plan and just pursue us that way. It's so simple. Everybody has 5 seconds to send a good morning text. And make sure, ladies, you thank him for it and you send a cute little response back. Are you sending memes? Are you sending emojis? Make sure you keep that clear. Some people get annoyed by that stuff. And you've really got to make sure that it's a clear and defined way that you two are going to be connecting on a regular basis. FaceTime is great nowadays. Little FaceTime dates. I have a glass of wine. Guys, if you want to send her a meal, send her favorite bottle of wine. How cute is that and thoughtful? I'm telling you, these are brownie points for you. The next thing you need to do is when you do come back together, you need to learn how to reconnect so that you're both feeling physically and emotionally connected. So maybe that's a walk. Maybe that is a nice romantic dinner out. I know for me, sure, I could see my guy who I haven't seen in a while and give him a big hug at the airport, but I want to get in the zone. I want to get back into the romance and the connectedness. And so before anything else happens, I need a little sit-down dinner. I need a glass of wine and smiling and giggling and sitting next to him and putting my hand on his thigh. I want to feel that connection again. And of course, men might need it a little bit faster. You two have to figure that out, what works for both of you. So figure out the best form of reconnecting. And lastly, this is going to have to be creative on you guys. And there's a great website for it. You have to stay creative with your physical connectivity. So I am no sex therapist, but there are plenty of ways and ideas to be doing that. And make sure that you communicate what you need. And maybe she's overdoing it. Maybe she's underdoing it. Maybe he's not doing enough. Maybe it's words of affirmation. Maybe it's visual. Either way, make sure that you're doing that physical connection so that you can also be connecting when you get back together. I highly recommend listening to Sex with Emily. I like Kim and Nami. They both have great ideas, very different principles. Sex with Emily's like sex every day with anybody, and Kim and Nami is like 3-hour sessions with your soulmate. So figure out. There's also a great Bad Girls Bible on the computer, on the internet. I'm telling you, you could Google this and figure it out, but figure out what's best for you and what works best for you. And if I can, especially with long distance dating, plan hotel nights. That's good for any relationship, but make it so that it's a little bit more of a planned and scheduled event because you don't get as much time together. When you're in a hotel, you're not worried about keeping things clean. You're not worried about you make a mess, you order room service, you can live a little. So that's another special way of reconnecting when you get back together. Now, guys, if you have any questions on this, feel free to email me, datingwithkaty@gmail.com. If you'd like to know more, if you'd like to work with me, do that as well. All the links are below. I am here to help you to get confident, be successful, and to have some fun dating. Talk soon.